Okay, so do we have any conflicts?
Yeah, I think I've got one. Go whichever way. Go both. Yeah, you're right. I inform this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in item 6.1, historical building at the Roma Hospital, as defined in section 150EN of the Local Government Act 2009. This declarable conflict of interest arises because of a professional taxation relationship. I can't divulge, but I can't divulge their name. It's on third paragraph, page 4, between a name and the date there, for clarity purposes. Although I have a declarable, professional, yeah. Although I have a declarable conflict of interest, I do not believe a reasonable person could have a perception of bias because the signs were, although I have a declarable conflict of interest, I do not believe a reasonable person could have a perception of bias because of the disconnect there, basically the disconnect there for the company mentioned, and what is being achieved here. I wish to participate in the decision in relation to this matter. I acknowledge that eligible councillors must now determine, pursuant to section 150 ES of the Local Government Act 2009, whether I may participate in the decision about the matter, including by voting on the matter, or must leave the meeting, including any area set aside for the public, and stay away from the meeting while the eligible councillors discuss and vote on the matter.
So just for clarity, this is an open agenda item, so the general public can...
Yeah, I don't, but I've got an issue with tax agents' situation. I can't divulge names because that would be breaching privacy.
The people will know, that's really the people will know anyway.
Like it's in the open.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But anyway, you just...
Yeah, but I haven't mentioned the name, that's all.
You've covered your...
Yeah, I've covered myself, yeah.
But it is an open general.
So what's
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Do we have anyone that would like to move this conflict?
So just so I'm clear, without saying the name for whatever reasons you can't say, but you're their accountant. Is that the connection? Is that where the declarable...
For privacy concern, I believe, yeah. I just don't want to go down that road because I really haven't got any advice on it, but I understand that I can't basically...
I'm just trying to understand the conflict.
Confidentiality. Yeah.
I'm trying to understand what the conflict is.
No, I've got a confidentiality issue there because it's been mentioned in the name. Sorry, I've got a conflict because the name of that client has been, yeah. So are you saying this whole minute is in the open thing?
The report is an open item.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I'm looking at it incorrectly, yeah.
But I think Councillor O'Neill's question was, is it to do with being a client, roughly? And because
yes, it is.
It could be a different conflict. So, you could be in partnership with them.
No, it's just basically a client relationship, yeah. Yep.
Okay, does anyone have any wording on that?
Cameron, have you got it on your iPhone?
Yeah.
Can't sign the use of his.
Let's let them, yeah, anyway.
That's all right, it's cool.
Yeah.
I've got it there if whoever wants to.
Which one were we looking at?
The one where you leave him in.
Yeah, I've never had to read this new one out.
Be the declarable conflict of interest.
These are the scripts you get to choose from. So this is it, and then it is. So you can do that one.
There it is.
There you go. One of those.
It's up there.
Don't,
Councillor Burgess?
on there.
I changed that.
Okay. I move that it is in the public interest that Councillor Edwards participates and votes on the agenda item 6.1 because a reasonable person would trust that the final decision was made in the public interest.
Okay, do we have a second to that motion? Well, I think Councillor Guthrie went first. So we'll go with Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition? Does anyone want to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against?
I'm abstaining because it's not clear to me.
Do you need to ask any more questions, or can you abstain? I'll still vote again.
It's an abstention. I've abstained from the vote.
Through, Mr. Mayor. Bill?
That is in the public interest that Councillor Edwards participates, not Councillor Guthrie.
Yeah.
I know, I've just.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
sorry,
just used
okay.
And the mover did say councillor.
Yeah, no, I realise that, but I just.
And the correct agenda, not item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're on to it.
I'm on
Okay,
to
let's
something.
do that vote again. All those in favour? All those against? And we have one abstention. Is what I've heard from Councillor O'Neill.
That's
So-
correct.
So, well, that will be
7-1.
for 7-1 abstention. Can I call for a division on the vote, please? Okay, moving on to, there is no other conflict. Moving on to item 6.1, historical building at Roma Hospital. Rob, did you have anyone that wanted to say opposite?
Yeah, to me, obviously this report there, we're asked to investigate the options of what the costs would be. There's some photos up on the screen there, councillors, for those who haven't seen the building. Invited Richard to come along today, answer any questions you might have about the removal. He has had some discussions with a removalist. He's got another meeting coming up this week as well. In terms of probably site location, Mr. Mayor, we probably haven't identified anything there. Probably, if the council want to go ahead with it, we'll probably look at the council there, what they had in mind. We're just asked to go away and price up the options as easily as possible. But Richard, did you want to have your discussion in there, mate?
I met with, sorry.
And with Queensland Health?
Yes, I met with Queensland Health. It was an informal meeting. Basically, I knocked on their door and asked them if I could have a look at the building. We couldn't get any access to the inside, but I did know that there was asbestos present in the building. How much I can't tell because all the lines were drawn. I couldn't get in and have a look. So we talked about the possibility of the council acquiring it. They told me that there'd be due course to follow with that, like applications to them. It is included in a contract for demolition, which is a little bit held up at the moment with the government election. So they're in caretaker mode, so they're not signing any contracts. So that may work in our favour time-wise. I went around and I did some measurements. They're my drawings and photos you see in the report. I contacted a house removal specialist that I've seen working on a house in town. I dropped in, invited him to come up and have a look at it, and we discussed the difficulties associated with moving the job. He provided me that afternoon a verbal quote to do the works, and based on his quote I did some figures and provided them to council via, I believe it was Tenya's report. I've also arranged to meet with a local house removalist to have a look at the job, and that'll be happening tomorrow hopefully. It's on his phone call, so when he rings I'll be there. and he'll go over it with me, and we'll do the same thing. We'll discuss it. I'll get some pricing off him. This gentleman is known to do things cheaper for local community stuff. So he's moved quite a few things for different community organisations around town.
There, as well, Richard, just in terms of the crane, I think probably a couple of councils are asking,
It's
necessary for a crane? Or?
It's a difficult site. That is one of the options. I discussed that with the house removalist, so that the idea was to put some big beams under it and just pick it up and turn it around and put it on a truck. Because I didn't get really good photos of it, but it is right on the new car park. Like, that is it's in the garden. Yeah, well, there's a car in the background. So there's a lot of infrastructure in there. There's curbing, more gardens right in front of it. You couldn't back a truck. You'd have to back a truck over about 3 or 4 gardens to get it under that. The only chance we thought we had of getting it as it sits now is to drive a truck in there as discreetly as possible, pick it up with a crane and put it on the truck and take it out. Even then, you'll see in the report I've included an amount for $15,000 to repatriate possible broken curbs, some asphalt and some gardens. It sounds like a lot, but once you start driving a truck with a house on it through a car park, there's going to be some significant repairs to be done. The gentleman I spoke to on site suggested the price he gave me was, it had conditions attached, and that condition was that he will remove that house after everything else has been demolished to the east of it. So there's a lot of buildings there, and that'll give him access effectively to back his truck up and under that. So there's a 1 metre step down roughly from there down to a footpath. Once all that's gone, you'll be able to get his truck there and either slide it on or build a ramp and get his truck under that and drive out through the demolition site. And that was his price. It hung on that. That was the only way he said that was it. The crane pricing is my pricing that I've obtained from the only crane mob in town that has a crane big enough to lift that and move it as far as we need to move it. It's too big for a frenner to pick it up and walk it around. It'll need to be done with a slew crane. So 50 tonne minimum.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Richard, so that's worst case scenario. So potentially you could take 20,000 off that price if waited after the demolition there was no.
That's right. So effectively, probably nearly half the price.
Yeah.
If he can back up and get
If he can back up and get access to it, as he said, like in a traditional manner. Traditionally, they jack them up on a stye and get the trailer under them and drop them back down and go. If he can do that, there was a lot of ifs.
I was going to ask a question because if this can be done at the tail end of everything, I don't know this chap you talk about here, but I know the other fellow you're referring to, he's got a hydraulic float, he would get up in there, no problem at all. I mean, he might put a bit dirty up front, I mean.
It is a metre. It is.
Yeah, no, I had it the other day.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're right.
I had to go to the hospital, I just walked over and looked at it. And there was a metre, I mean, he just put a load of dirt in there, then.
Through you again, Mr. Mayor. And I think also the time-wise, if that was the case, it'd give us time to, if we did go ahead to find a location moving forward.
Once again, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm assuming you were referring to the chap that was working up in Queen Street. I don't know anything about.
He's
not a local, so
that is the gentleman.
he'd probably be, by the time he'd probably be gone. You know what I mean? We don't know.
That's right. They're fairly mobile. They can.
Yeah.
They that's their job.
But he's, what I'm getting at, if he goes to Toowoomba or Million, I don't know where he comes from, and works, that he'd be allowing for mobilisation back, because he wouldn't sit around for a month or 6 weeks to wait for, well.
That is a risk, and that's right,
He covers all bases.
Yeah, that's right. We weren't sure what timing Queensland Health or what Council's timing was on it.
Another question, you're a builder,
Oh, sorry, yeah, Councillor McMullen, we might go to Councillor Ladbrook and then O'Neill and then Hancock.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, is the building worth shifting?
Well, that's one.
It looks in pretty good nick.
you know,
For a building of its
time
age.
sat there and renovated and all that, like it's pretty,
It was recently restumped,
okay.
so it's gone through a similar process to what, so they would jack it up the same as if they were going to move it recently, and there's no evidence of that having an adverse effect on the building. It's a solid old girl.
My question's similar. Who's been in it? Rich, have you been in?
I could not get access.
Okay.
Sorry.
You didn't either?
I just walked over the car park.
Because the outside from those photos looks fine to me, but it's what is the cost that we need to incorporate internally.
So I've got something on there, but I'll let Councillor Hancock, when
So that was part of my question as well, but I have another one. But just to clarify, didn't mention that you thought there was asbestos in there?
I did. There's on government buildings there's a sticker that says asbestos is present in this building. If I was to presume anything, which I don't do very often, I would say that there's a window in the photos. There's a window that has been removed and a panel been put in. I suggest that that panel's asbestos, but without going in and having a look and seeing whether the building's been relined, so it could be 1 square metre of asbestos, or it could be 60 or 70.
Yeah, so we'd really need a building report on it. My other question I had was actually probably to you, Mr. Mayor, is have we actually had community feedback to say that they want this building? Do we have got people who are in line for what is the plan? I guess that's my question.
Okay, so just on that, to do with the condition of the building inside, the former maintenance manager for the hospital, who's retired now, is the one that had made contact with me about saving the building, and he said it was the old boardroom of the hospital, so it goes back a long way, polished floors inside, pressed ceiling roof, and as you know, it's not a big building. And for the councillors that were here last term, we had community members asking to save the house that was saved, much the same way when they're actually shifting the site off of the new hospital. And one of the issues there that actually made it that community groups didn't want it was because they pulled the whole inside out of it already, and which was interesting because they didn't believe it was asbestos, but it was pulled out as if it was asbestos. So that made it harder, but that house went to a community, a member of the community that has done the house up. So this one, going from the retired maintenance manager, he said it's an exceptional building as far as, its construction and so forth, and is a piece of history to save. So one of the things that I believe we should be doing is, if council decides to, that we need to get on the front foot. And how we saved the other building was to go to the person with the contract and say, look, the community wants to see this not trashed and turned up in our landfill. How can we have this for the community? We'll have a community group or someone that will want it, or it could be someone like that. And then they go, oh great, well it saves us actually having to get rid of it. So, and of course it's going to be a lot cheaper if we wait till the end and there's a clear site for someone to pull up. So, and because this building is so small, it's how wide is it, Richard?
68, 67 or
that's
something.
that's the veranda.
There is a drawing. There we go. So it's 6 metres wide
68.
by 7 metres long. It's 7.9. Yeah,
Is
so it's
the
nearly 8 metres long.
veranda able to be detached?
I wouldn't think so. The roof would have to come off to move it. And like you said, the current BEMS manager confirmed that it does have a quite a nice pressed metal ceiling in it. And there was rumours that it may have once been an operating theatre. Which, with my knowledge, that makes sense as to why the windows are all around it.
Let light in.
To let the light in, so there's no shadow. It doesn't cast a shadow. I did a heritage reno up at Bailey Henderson, and it had a building like that, and that's what it was, all surrounded by windows.
Oh, you're,
Sorry, Mr Mayor, 2 questions for Richard. The roof, is it purely because of height, I think?
Yes, that's correct. It was identified as a height issue.
Just from memory, Mr Mayor, the other house, there was volunteer people help escort the power lines on it previously.
It'll be interesting when you get other feedback to see whether you get the same response there.
Well, probably my most important question, sorry, was the asbestos. Do you have to remove asbestos to move the house, or what's the story?
No, I sought advice on that
Yeah.
from our building inspector or our building officer before I came in. He is of the opinion, and he used to work for a building removals. So Scotty said that you can apply to have the asbestos remain intact inside it. You have to have an asbestos management plan, and it has to be lodged with the correct authorities for it to be moved. In saying that, it mustn't be a problem for the people that move these houses a lot, because the gentleman did indicate to me that it would be, he said he could move it with it in there. So it must be a matter of going through the motions, ticking the boxes and make sure it is. And Scott said that once it's in position where it's final position, if the management plan's in place, etc., there's no reason to remove the asbestos as long as it's managed, so encapsulated, etc., labelled, etc.
Can you sort of, you may have mentioned that you don't, until you get in there, it could even be sheeted anyway.
It may well be
They
sheeted
may
on the inside.
help you.
The blinds were drawn.
Yeah.
I could not get a peek. I crawled all under it, but I couldn't
Probably
get
we've had to, just on that question, Mr Mayor, through you, there probably a couple of buildings we've had in the past where it's been asbestos on the outside of the building, and they're the ones that you find very difficult to get a.
Yeah, I understand.
Did the one in Rome and those couple in Mitchell, and
This is all weather.
this is, yeah, if it's inside, it's you can manage, when it's on the outside of the building, you try and pick it up and pump it and move it, but.
True.
As Richard said, it may not be a lot.
Councillor Burke.
through you, Mr Mayor. Richard, it's a hardwood building, like hardwood construction?
it is.
So it's structurally strong too.
It's structurally strong.
And through you, Mr Mayor, that was the big thing with the other house, it was all hardwood, that's why, and the one that, 2-3 years ago, whenever it was, the pathology building was all hardwood, and
Good buildings.
And if council get on the front foot, if we decide to do this and we get on to the contractor, because I met with Southwest Health and they said that handed it over. So if we can get onto the contractor and say, we need it for the community, then we could go out at the same time and ask which community groups would like it. And we could do that so it may get shipped at once rather than shipped twice. If the contractor is happy to, the demolition contractor, leave it till last in the, and then a lot of those costs that we're talking about can be averted. Because it's a big difference if you're dealing with someone that, they've got a way around those issues rather than coming from the car park. Any other questions, councillors? Okay, well, I'd like to move that council seek negotiations with the successful tenderer of the hospital demolition in regards to securing the historic building as identified on the hospital site, to secure it for a community group or the community, or a community member, on the basis that it will be saved to be removed last as part of demolition of the Roma hospital site.
Would you start with initiate rather than seek?
Yep, happy with that?
I just have a question, Mr Mayor.
Sure.
I just want to clarify, to secure it for a community group or the community or a community member, are you thinking that an individual person could then be given this not necessarily a community
Okay, so
group?
the only reason I'm saying that is because last time we actually put it out to all community groups, no community groups wanted it. And then, of course, we said, okay, community member, and there was someone that was happy to take it, re-stump it and fill it up and so forth. So it was still saved, so it wasn't put into our landfill, which is a cost to council. So, of course, that's why I've got first community group or the community, and then lastly, community member or something, otherwise we might end up with the building, so.
What's the difference between the community or a community member?
Well, it could be a community group might want it, or it could be somewhere that council finds that the community would benefit from.
So then would you crack off community member, because that sounds like we'd give it to an individual, and if no community group wanted it, I'm sure that we've got a council-owned facility. I'm thinking Mitchell, Bassett Park. I mean, there's a number of areas that we might be able to have a look at.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I was just saying that, and also we could probably bring it back if no one wanted it.
That's what I was saying, you can leave your options open by just saying community. My second question, Mr Mayor, was I just note in the report that there is no budget allocated for this, and so before we make a decision to do this, we probably need to work out where we'll get the money from.
Well, I believe this is going to come back to council anyway, so we're really saying that, and if you get into the process early and say to the contractor that's got the job, look, we really want it, and we make representations, and that's what I did on behalf of the community last time, and council, and then what happened is they go, okay, you want that building, we don't have to worry about it.
So do you just go one, what you've got, two, and the cost be presented to council at a future, the cost be presented to a future council meeting for consideration?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. And, because the cost could vary dramatically.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right, yeah. But I just feel that we have to know where we're getting the money from.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Guthrie, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? I'll speak. This is a fantastic opportunity, and as driven in purest form from a member of the public that would like us to secure this, so if we can find a different home, I think it's a win-win for the whole community of the Maranoa, and it's a piece of history that we would be securing for the Maranoa. Anyone else wish to speak? No one wish to speak against? Okay, we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Any further business, councillors? We'll close the meeting at 3:52 p.m. Thank you for your attention.